Yep. All right, Yep.
Good evening, everyone, and how awesome it is to see everyone in person and everyone out there on YouTube land as well. This meeting is a meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Opportunities for public participation will be permitted in accordance with policy 167.3. If you will all please join me and stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public comments. We have no public comments. We will go into the consent agenda. I ask for a motion to accept the consent agenda, please.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
You both are at the same time. So one of you, Steve, also made a motion at the same time.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, thank you. The motion has been made by Steve and seconded by Dave. We will now take a roll call vote. Debbie? Yes. Dave?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Michelle, myself, no. Motion carries 4-1. Next is student field trips and professional travel.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's patience tonight. We're balancing several pieces of technology, trying to get this out in several different arenas. So we're on a couple of different platforms to make sure that everyone can hear us tonight with the important information that we're sharing. So appreciate your patience as we kind of work through some of those bugs this evening. As professional travel, as we've mentioned in previous meetings, field trips are not something that we're engaging in as a county, but we are still engaging in some professional travel as required. This particular item is for one of our technicians for maintenance and HVAC training. And so this is something that we need to stay current in terms of the things that we need to do with our HVAC system. So we will be sending him to Texas. That is at the cost of the company that we use to keep track of our systems. It is not a cost of the district.
I ask for a motion to approve the professional travel.
I make a motion to approve professional travel.
Thank you, Debbie. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is made by Debbie and seconded by Dawn. We will now do the roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carried, 5-0. Other business.
Thank you. We have a huge list tonight, but most importantly, we want to talk about our return to school plan, our reentry plan. So I am going to remove my mask to get through this portion. A little hard. And scoop. Okay. We have, just to kind of update everyone, update the board, we have talked with our staff initially about the plan that you all have seen and is in front of you. And so yesterday we did a quick webinar, Craig and I did, to share just some basic details. We have not shared the entire plan, but we shared some basic details of what we would be asking you all to consider tonight for a vote. Everyone understands that the plan has not been approved, and we're looking for your approval tonight for the plan. One other piece that I want to share just right off the top or ask everyone to remember is that the plan is a basic foundation. It is subject to change as conditions change. We need to be flexible. We know that, but we have to start somewhere. So this plan is the start. It's the starting foundation for what we intend to do this school year. Also, as I mentioned at the front end a few seconds ago, as a county, we did meet as 4 superintendents to discuss with the Board of Health and a couple of other folks in the community, things that we were agreeable to that needed to happen for our school systems, all four, to open in the same manner. So we shared those a few weeks ago. Those have not changed. This plan layers on top of that. So they don't, one doesn't replace the other. They layer upon one another. The plan that we're going to talk about tonight, we are going to share as many details as we can, but it's not going to answer every question that everyone has. We're certain of that because there are more questions than there are answers based upon the fact that we're still 4 weeks away from school starting. A lot can happen in 4 weeks. And we also know that if you're watching numbers, which I do on a daily basis, I'm sure many of you do, this plan could be shifted one way or another based on where we see ourselves in 4 weeks. With that being said, just some high points, and I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Buckler if he wants to add anything. Some things that this plan entails. Taking a different look at our HVAC systems. I'm going to give you some examples of things that we've done this summer that we're tweaking and we're working on to make sure that our environments are safe or the safest. We have had our HVAC folks going through buildings, checking HVAC systems to ensure that we're exceeding, not just meeting, the air quality standards that are required at schools. What I know about air quality in core schools, what's required is much more significant than what's required in any other portion of in any area because we're dealing with young people. And so we actually, all of the standards that are set, we are actually exceeding all those standards and have kind of gone a notch above. So, for example, filters on all of our systems, there's a certain MERV level if you're a facilities person, and we are actually 2 notches above what's required for public schools. So we've taken some initiatives this summer to make sure that we're doing all that we can in all of these different areas. That's one example. Another example, we are installing sanitizer units in every classroom, and so there will be hand sanitizer available to every student and every staff member or anyone who wishes to use it within our buildings. That's not required. That's something that we're doing because we think it's a smart thing to do. We think it's a smart thing to do on a normal day. It's not meant to replace hand washing. That is, again, another piece of what we will be working on as we retrain everyone. Hopefully everyone washes their hands, but I think we can wash our hands even more than we already are. So that will be something that becomes just a piece of curriculum. As we shared as a county, we are eliminating all field trips. Part of this plan, or a major piece of this plan, is making sure that we're limiting movement and we're limiting how much kids and staff are touching items. So those are really the 2 avenues. Limiting touching things and as much as possible, and limiting movement during the day. This plan does that as much as possible. So eliminating field trips is one of those things that helps us with that. We will be eliminating visitors. We will not allow people to come into the building unless you have a reason to need to be there. So we will not be quite as open as we have been in the past. In terms of socially distancing and masks, I want to make sure that everyone hears me loud and clear as the superintendent. If a student can't social distance or a staff member can't social distance, they will be required to wear a mask. That is agreed upon by all 4 superintendents in the county. We believe that this is one of the components that will help us slow down the spread, stop the spread, perhaps get this over with more quickly than it seems to be taking this summer and where we find ourselves right now. So again, masks will be required when students cannot social distance. Now, on the flip side of that, what I will tell you is that we're working very hard to create scenarios where kids can social distance so that we don't have to have students necessarily in masks all day long. But it would be ill of me to say that a student is going to come to school and not have to wear a mask. There will be times that they will need to do that. We're expecting students to have masks on their person at all times. If a student doesn't have a mask, we have masks. We're going to make sure every student has a mask. I would also share that in terms of our adults, the same expectations will be in place for them. In terms of a couple of other variables, meals in the classroom. So instead of eating in cafeterias where people are crossing paths, all food will be brought to classrooms by our food service people. So they've been working all summer on some pretty significant plans to make that happen. As you can imagine, that creates other issues with food and things in classrooms and custodial support. And so we're adjusting those systems as well to make sure that we're taking care of those needs. If you think about it, if we're not putting students in cafeterias, and perhaps we're not using the media centers in the ways that we have before, and we're not using common spaces, that frees those spaces up for us to spread kids out even more. So we will be looking at how do we, instead of our traditional model of 25 kids in a classroom, how are we spreading those students out over a building instead of looking at things being very segregated by class? How are we this year doing that a little bit differently and spreading out across the building and using all of the square footage that we have that's available to us? All of those pieces, or all of these pieces, are things that that help. They don't fix the problem. There's no silver bullet, as we all know. But they assist us with hopefully slowing down the spread or stopping the spread as much as possible. In terms of students who may be compromised, or staff members that may have an issue or concern. And I would also add to that, any situation where there might be a student who has a family member at home that's COVID positive, as an example. We've thought through those pieces. We have very clear guidance from the Indiana Department of Health, as well as our Morgan County Health Department, on what we need to do in terms of timelines and how we need to treat those situations. We are not going to necessarily punish any student for not being able to be at school, or any staff member for not being able to be healthy and at school. So we will work with those individuals on a one-by-one basis, or on a one-by-one basis, I should say, to make sure that we're considering the needs of those kids that have those particular needs. The reason I share that is because when you look at our plan, and we will be publicly posting the plan along with an introductory video that's hopefully a little smoother than my conversation tonight about it, a little more well thought out. You will see that we are making basically a stoplight approach. So as I was talking a little bit earlier today, and you'll see the video if you catch it on the internet starting tomorrow, the system will be basically a stoplight system. So if you go to our website, you'll see the stoplight, just like with weather. A lot of schools will use that for whether or not you're going to be on a 2-hour delay or you're going to cancel school. We're going to use the exact same system, so it will be a green, yellow, red system. We all know red. We've been doing red for the last 4 months, so I don't need to describe red to any of you. Yellow, I'll come back to, so let's start with green. So green is basically where I intend to start us on August 12th. That is as of today. And I want to throw that caveat out there. That is as of today. Things might change in the next 4 weeks, and we will monitor up to the last minute, just like we do weather. And so, we're not going to predict something 4 weeks out that we can't predict. But what this plan does is it gives us 3 different avenues for people to really understand, okay, here are the 3 directions they could go as a district. They're either going to go green, yellow, or red. You can count on that being one of the directions as we move into this school year. So green being the low spread in our community, which is where we are now. We're a fairly low spread community. And again, we are on the phone, or I've been on the phone almost daily with the Board of Health. We're having conversations about where we are as a community in terms of our spread. We are in green right now. And what green means is that students come to school, they're here 5 days a week. I'm sorry, 4 days a week. Kids will come Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And so in green, students attend 4 days a week. We repeat that, because I messed it up. Students will come 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesdays for first semester, and we will revisit this as we get closer to second semester. Wednesdays will be held for 2 purposes. They will be e-learning days across the district for all students. That Wednesday will serve 2 purposes. The first purpose is it gives us the opportunity to deep clean all of our properties. We think is a very important thing to do. We will obviously be deep cleaning anyway, but we truly want to have a break in the middle of the week to be able to really do things that we think will make a difference to make it a safer week for students, particularly when we're in green. So, pardon me. While we're in green and we're looking at this as the second piece of what a Wednesday will be for, is for us to help our teachers and all of our support staff, custodians, cafeteria folks, anyone that works for the corporation. Those will be days in which they're receiving training. And so we're going to work very diligently in helping our teachers be the best teachers they can be in terms of how they provide instruction to our students through e-learning. I would say that one of the things that I heard over and over and over, have a couple of different connections in some other school districts, is how impressive it was that our teachers just picked up and took a really messy situation and made it work. It wasn't perfect, we know that, but they made it work. And from other colleagues and from other places, that's not what they heard from their parents. So I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of that our teachers work so hard to make things work. But we owe it to them to make sure that they have the skill set and they have the training to know what to do to make it the best that it could be in terms of an e-learning situation. If we find ourselves switching to red at some point during the school year, which again, we hope we don't. But if we do, I want people to have the most training they can have to get us where we need to be with our students. So again, green one last time, Monday and Tuesday, we're in class. Wednesday, up until the end of first semester at the very least. It could potentially be the entire year. We haven't decided that yet as of today. But Monday and Tuesday would absolutely be in person. Wednesday would be an e-learning day. Thursday and Friday would also be in-person learning. So we switched to yellow. There's a lot more to the plan, but we'll switch to yellow and kind of talk about what it looks like when we switch to yellow. Yellow is where we're truly reducing the number of kids in a building as well as in individual classrooms. So I got some questions today about this from teachers. So I want to make sure I'm very clear about this and clear this up. In essence, if you're a teacher, you're a fifth grade teacher and you have 20 students, we'll make the math easy. You have 20 students in your class. 10 of your students will come on Monday and Tuesday. The other 10 students will come on Thursday and Friday. So you will in essence be splitting your class in half, and students will have 2 days of in-person instruction each week. The other 3 days, because it will be a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the A group, that they'll be getting their learning through e-learning, and we flip-flop for the B group. They would be getting theirs Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if that makes sense. So in essence, if we're in yellow, students will have 2 days of in-person instruction, 3 days of at-home learning. Depending on which group you're in, if you're A or B, your 2 days will either be a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. So that's yellow. Again, red, we've talked about is exactly what we've been experiencing. A couple of other additional things with green, back to how we're going to start the year. With the Board of Health's help and with the CDC guidelines that we're obviously paying a great deal of attention to, they have made recommendations and almost edicts on certain things that we do. For example, not using common things like drinking fountains. If you've ever been in school and you watch what kids do, everybody's lips, tongue, hands, touch every square inch of that water fountain. And so it seems like an odd thing to do, but those are all being turned off. The only portion of those water fountains that will be in order are the actual, you put your cup up to, or you put your water bottle up to the auto filler. It's hard to say. That's the only portion of those water systems that will work. And so we're going to encourage students to bring a water bottle. If they don't have one, we will certainly make sure that kids are not dehydrated throughout the day and they will have plenty to drink, but we will not be having kids funnel through push-button water fountains, as an example. So those are the kinds of things that we've spent the last couple of months trying to figure out where are those hot spots in schools, what do we know from the CDC, what do we know from our local Board of Health. I want to give a shout out to them. They've been phenomenal in supporting us in the different plans that we have. I think the perfect example, and I'm kind of jumping around here, was graduation on Sunday. We presented a plan to them and we said, here are the things we're going to do. This is how we're going to try to keep people safe. Do we have your thumbs up? And we got a thumbs up. Now, there were a couple of tweaks that they wanted us to make. We made those tweaks and we felt good about that. I think it's also very important to point out, I don't want to mislead anyone, the governor as well as basically everyone above me as a superintendent in the state of Indiana has said that it is up to us to decide what we do locally. They are not getting involved, highly involved in the decision-making of how we handle things. They will advise and they will consult, but they're not going to approve things. So take that for what you will. It puts me and us in a precarious situation in some ways, but we're going to do the best we can based on the advice that we can read and we can see and what we know about spread at this time. One last point, pardon me, I'll look at my notes. I just want to remind people that we don't have all the answers. We just don't. And we're going to do the best we can as we go along. And we're going to make sure that people are safe. And I want families to know that it is just as important to me that their children are safe as it is for our staff. If we don't have healthy staff, we can't run school. If we don't have healthy kids, we have no need to run school. So we need to balance both, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of people. We're going to work hard to do that. And if we get to a point where we can't do one of those two things, then we'll have to make some different decisions. But what I can tell you, again, is to make sure folks are kind of on the same page and understand, we will take one of these three routes. They're going to yellow or the red. So with that, I'm going to toss to Mr. Buckley. Do you have anything you want to add?
I don't really have anything additional.
Mr. Ogden? Questions the board might have?
I think it would be important to tell the family members about the Wednesday. Are you still doing that option plan when you're picking up the K through
Yes.
6 and the internet situation? I think
Yes.
that's get covered too with parents.
Yes, great, thank you, I forgot about those things. So we know in our community that there are families that may not have access to internet, and Tuesdays create some issues, so let's start with that one. We are installing or working on installing internet access points on the outsides of our buildings. So you potentially, if you live near a building or you have the ability to get to a building, you could pull up in a parking lot, and if you have a school-owned device, you automatically connect. So a student could have their device with them. I'm not suggesting that people sit in parking lots for hours on end and do homework, but what it could do is give that student the opportunity to get to an internet connection and download or upload something if they needed to. We also will be working with teachers. There are a number of ways for students to have that information in their Chromebook or uploaded somewhere so that they have it before they leave school on Tuesday. As an example, if they're that Tuesday group, we could make sure they have all the things that they need on Tuesday. They go on Tuesday night, work on the work, and then Thursday when they come back, or whatever the next day is that they're back in school, that's the time in which it could upload to the network. So we will work with people to make sure that that's possible. That would be if we're on just either yellow or green or yellow. But again, with the internet piece, if we do have to go to red, we think having internet on outside of buildings is somewhat of a solution. It's not perfect, but it's somewhat of a solution. We have heard a couple of folks say or suggest, well, we know in other states or other counties, even not too far from here, well, they park buses, and they're using buses as hotspots for people to get near. I'm a little nervous about that. I'm just going to be blunt and honest. Buses are $200,000, and to just park them in places where they're not secure, it doesn't seem smart to me, to a taxpayer. As I have to represent a taxpayer. So I want to make sure that whatever we do is sustainable and doesn't end up with damage and is helpful to the community. I don't imply that I think about that all the time, but it's something that I have to think about. So that doesn't make sense to me, which is why we're choosing to do it on buildings. And if we do that, we have 11, 12 different properties across the corporation, and we can do that and give parents and families a little bit more access to internet. So that's one way. In terms of childcare and that kind of stuff, is that where you were headed?
Yes.
On Wednesdays, we are going to offer minimal, and I will say minimal, I'll explain why I'm saying minimal, but we will offer a program. We're still parsing out details, so be very careful about what I say so I don't promise something that we can't end up doing. But what we're going to do is offer programming so that students can come, or I shouldn't say programming, we're going to offer locations that students can spend the day at that are supervised and can work on e-learning. So if a family absolutely has zero options for their student to be at home or to be with a relative or whatever that might look like, we will have locations within the district in which students can come. We will provide busing just like we normally do. Students would come to that location, would be supervised, and would have the ability to, in essence, have access to the internet. It will not be recess. We will have lunch because students will need to be fed, of course. But it won't be a recess sort of situation, or it's not where we're going to have teachers teaching. It will be instructional assistants and other support staff across our district who are monitoring those sites. Because remember, those Wednesdays are being designed for our teachers to be away from students so that they can improve their skills and can get the training that we feel like we owe them. So that's a solution that we're working on. I'm positive that we're going to have the solution. Details as to where those locations are, what that looks like, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. I don't suspect, you run transportation. If you're not running school, we're still paying for transportation, so it's not an additional cost. It doesn't hurt for us to run buses and do what we normally do to get kids to the locations that they need to those days. It might just be that we're not going to have very many kids on any of those buses, but we know that there are situations in which we need to provide students an opportunity for access during those Wednesdays.
When you said the hotspot, every building will have a hotspot or just certain buildings?
I'm looking at our tech person. I know that all of our schools will.
That's why I mean, all our elementaries.
Yes.
So they're all gonna have, okay, thank you.
And I have a bigger sort of dream, which you might throw a rock at my head here, but I have a bigger dream of that being in every building we own. So we have some other properties in the district that we could probably do the same, which might spread that even a little bit more.
Okay, that clears it, that helps, thank you.
Dr. Arthur, a couple
Yes, sir.
things. You, in your readings, you, of course, a lot of unknowns. We don't have a manual to go to for all these answers.
We're writing it as we go.
The air filtration, you said, I'm going to use the term, we're 2% above a state number. Could you kind of clarify, I know you're not a heating and air conditioning guy, what got us to that point? So people safe and knowing that
Sure.
the virus isn't going to be built around through our schools.
Sure. It's not uncommon for air quality questions to come up around schools. That's a pretty common thing that we do and handle, and have a company that comes in and does that work. But this was a particular time in my mind that I felt like we need to reassure people that we were doing everything we need to do. To be honest, I was just curious what we were doing. And so I had Mr. Arns reach out to our HVAC person for our district, and they've been working with a couple of our vendors that we use for HVAC systems and supplies and that kind of stuff, to make sure that we have the appropriate return outside air coming into buildings, all those things that, again, I'm getting into dangerous territory here, but things that HVAC people know need to happen for schools, and then what's one notch better that we can do to make sure that we're sort of ahead of the game. We didn't go through and replace every HVAC system in the district this summer. That's not something we did, but I do want to be very clear that the standard that we use already before COVID, pre-COVID, was already above, like I said, what the state standards are for air quality and control of our systems. And as we've replaced systems, even in the last 12 months I've been here, which now we're in our third significant system, right now, Woodlands is being replaced, and a significant portion of all of the high school is going through renovation right now, and will be ready the first day of school. So we have updated systems so much, and you guys have updated systems before I got here, that we're in pretty good shape. And in situations where we're not, there's a great deal of monitoring that goes on. And I say not, what I mean by that is just older systems that require a little bit more care. When they flip off, somebody has to get there a little bit more quickly. But all of our other systems are in pretty good shape.
You mentioned going to the yellow, possibly 20 students, 10 on Monday, Tuesday, 10 on Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
You mentioned 25 in a classroom. Is there going to be enough that there's a magical number for social distancing? How many students can be in a classroom that kind of people feel at ease?
Great question. I wish I could make everyone feel at ease, and I know my teacher friends here are saying, yeah, he's not going to be able to answer that question, and they're right. It really depends on the square footage of the classroom and what class it is. Depending on if it's a specialty class, particularly at the high school, it really just depends on what kind of specialty class it is. It might be a class that's only offered 1 or 2 sections a day, and the numbers in that class are high. In those instances, those are classes where students are going to have masks on the entire time. There will be no question about it. As an example, I know like in the science classes, a couple of the lab situations, when you have all the students in there and you have kids that are elbow to elbow doing a lab experiment, that would not be a good time for us to be practicing social distance. It would be a much better time for us to be wearing masks. So we've talked, and I failed to mention this on the front end, we've met with the Teachers Association, among several other groups, which I'll name here in a second, but we've met with the Teachers Association off and on this summer, and we shifted to an every other week meeting. And I really want to say thank you to them, because the team in particular, because they've dedicated a great deal of time of their own this summer to come in and work with us on working through all these details of things that maybe we haven't thought about because we're not teaching in a classroom like they are. And the lab came up as an example. How are we going to do this in a situation where there are more kids than there is space to spread out? I have to say to you, Mr. Reinhardt, if we get to a point where the spread is fairly significant in the community, and I don't feel comfortable that we truly can space out enough in our buildings, that will be a time in which we'll probably have to make a shift to a different color on our stoplighting, no doubt about it. But we're hoping we don't get there, but we may have to. I'm not sure how to answer, but I'm trying to be blunt, honest, and transparent here. And I mean, every classroom is different.
It's about getting information out to people that can feel at ease.
Sure.
Send their children to school.
Sure.
Are you shutting down the buildings per se? Like, will there be like practices? the fall sports be able to practice that day, or are they off that day?
On like the Wednesdays?
On the Wednesday.
So because the Wednesdays are considered e-learning days and they meet the requirement of an in-school day, sports will go as normal. There's a little, thank you for asking that question. There's a rumor that's floating around, I know, imagine that. A rumor going around that if kids are not in their seat on that day, they cannot participate. That is not true. If they are engaged in e-learning and they are at home and we've called an e-learning day, then there's no reason that they can't participate in a sport, assuming they're healthy and there aren't other issues. But sports would continue as normal. The other thing I want to say about sports, it is all tied to, I'm sorry, I have my back to you, the microphone's kind of in a weird spot. The other thing that I want to mention about athletics is that it is all dependent upon relationships with the IHSAA, the Department of Education, and the boards of health. And so they are highly managing right now what that looks like, which I'm really appreciative of, because we have waited a really long time to be asked for guidance from entities about these kinds of things. And so we're happy that they're providing it. And I'm happy to say, and I hope I don't jinx anything, we've had a pretty good couple of weeks with athletics so far. And so our coaches have taken things very, very seriously. We've had a couple bumps here and there. We've worked through those. Just, like I said earlier, we're writing the playbook as we go. So, checking kids in, they can't all be clumped together while they're at the checking table. Like just things like that. Like how do we make sure that we're teaching kids, our kids, that once you get into the field, you got to do the same things in the field as you walk up to the field and the table where you're checking in. You got to be practicing these things all the time or else they don't work. And so a lot of education, a lot of patience on everyone's part. Like I said, our coaches have been phenomenal. They have worked their tail ends off to make this work and make it the best experience for kids. I have been known to say a number of times that if we don't get this right, it could be the end of athletics. And so let's not mess up. And folks have taken that very seriously. So, and I don't anticipate anybody will purposefully mess up, but we got to make sure we're doing all the things we can to mitigate that.
Thank you.
I would just like to say that I support this reentry plan. I think everything in it is very sound. My only concern is that we are not offering an all online option for the families. I got to believe that there's families in our district who, for whatever their medical reasons are, may think it's uncomfortable to send their kids back into a building with person-to-person teaching. And my fear is that they will choose to send their kids to a different district in our area here that does offer that option.
Sure. I do want to address that, and Craig, I don't know if you have a couple words to say about this as well, but that was one of the points I made a little bit earlier, in the sense that if we have a family who presents to us that that's an issue for them, that we will work with them to provide whatever it is that we need to provide to keep them. And so if that means that that particular student needs to be in an e-learning situation, then we will work through a process with that family to identify that that's the need, and we will provide what we need to provide to that student. So, well, you're right, we're not offering an all-out virtual option to the whole community. The reason for that is we felt very strongly that that was not fair to our teaching staff to expect them to turn around and be able to virtually teach as well as manage a classroom. It is almost impossible to do both of those things because virtual classrooms require a teacher to basically just do that. We don't have the capacity unless we hire an exponential number of teachers right now to make that work. Because you in essence are adding another school building to your buildings. It just happens to be virtual instead of in person. So very much honor your concerns about that and the community members, but our way around that is making sure that for those students that have those needs, or like I said earlier, families that present with a COVID issue, whether that's temporary or long-term. For example, we might have a family that, a family member has cancer, is fighting cancer, and a student coming back and forth, that may not make sense for their family. I'm not interested in turning that student away. That's not their fault. It's not anyone's fault. And so we are focused on working through those situations with those families to make sure they get what they need.
Is there a way that we will be able to reach out to those families?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
I understand that.
We actually today created a link that we're going to be pushing out to the community tomorrow. The link has basically you put your name, your student's name, contact information, and what the concerns are that you have regarding your student and why you feel like you need a sort of virtual approach. What we will then do is filter those down to the principal. The principal will be reaching out to those individual families to work through that with them. And it's pretty similar to what we'll be doing with staff members, quite honestly, is working through a system of If you need accommodations on your job, we will work with you to provide those accommodations. We know that some people will not be able to come back at all, and so that will trigger into some HR policies of FMLA and those kinds of things. Thank you. Craig, do you have anything to add to that?
Can you go over the ways that you're gonna roll all this out to the public?
Yeah, so tomorrow, we were working on some videos today, or a video today, so we'll be pushing a video tomorrow afternoon. Along with that will be the actual red, green, yellow plan that we've been talking about. I keep saying this and I can't seem to get it done, so I'm gonna say it right now. I want to thank the people who've been involved in this plan. I think it's important for people to understand how much energy has gone into this. This was not superintendent, assistant superintendent, and business director designing this. We have been in every meeting with every group, but we are not the ones who designed every piece of it. We got a great deal of stakeholder feedback. I know the Teachers Association, each time we met, went back and asked questions of teachers to ensure that we were thinking through the pieces that we need to think through. And we're not done yet. We still have 4 weeks. We'll keep parsing through this and we'll work together to get that done. So again, I want to say a sincere thanks to MCTA for their support and hard work on this, because again, we've asked a lot from them. Again, the Morgan County Board of Health, we have been in multiple webinars with them. We're all on a first name basis now. I never thought that would happen. I thought the Board of Health was food, but we are now on a first name basis about all kinds of things. I was on the phone today with one of the county nurses. So that's another group that we're working very closely with. Craig and I both have direct ties with the state superintendent, so we are very attuned to what's going on with the state from the state superintendent's perspective. Obviously, we're all staying connected to all the things that are coming out of the governor's office, which change based on where the numbers are. We're paying attention, as I said, to the back on track COVID numbers that get posted, just like anyone else can look at. Additional groups, our principals have been in front of this plan multiple times, and they've had their hands on it for weeks. So they're very aware of what it contains and have given us feedback. The board has seen it. We worked through some concerns, or we shared the plan with them and gave them an opportunity to share their concerns. I'm forgetting our district directors probably have spent the most time with it, because they're my audience I have captive the most. So we've spent a lot of time in this building hammering out what ifs, right? So our director of facilities, what do we do if this happens? What do we do if that happens? What if all of our custodians are sick? What if we get at the point? So we have lots of those plans on the back end to try and keep things operating and running. I have been asked, well, people who see the plan, why don't you put all that in the plan? We couldn't possibly put every scenario in the plan. But what I can tell you is we've tried to think of every scenario, and we have a multitude of documents that are kind of sitting on the backside that we will use to direct us. And the majority of those documents directly align with, like I said earlier, CDC guidance, or with something that we have worked through with the Department of Health. So we feel good about the plan today. We feel good about transitioning back to school on August 12th. If things stay the way that they are, we think that we can safely operate. We understand that there are people who are worried. We understand that. We also, I want to say, and this will come out in the video tomorrow, we understand that kids have been home since March. And there are a number of students whose social emotional needs are probably through the roof. Ours are, so why would we not expect our kids' needs to be different? So we know if kids transition back, we're going to have to work hard to help them transition back and support them. So it is not going to be a year as normal in any way we look at it. We will probably be spending, I would suspect, multiple days, weeks on the front end, just truly acclimating kids back and helping them sort of process all the stuff that's gone on and how we're going to pick up and move forward in sort of the new way things are going to be done.
If I put this up for a vote and it changes, is there any language I need to do at the forefront, or?
No, we do not. And the reason is, I'll sort of just kind of remind the public, there is a, currently, because we're in a pandemic crisis situation, there's the ability for I, as the superintendent, to tweak things.
Okay.
I would tell you though, there's really not much in this that I think would tweak. I am looking at my colleagues here, but everything here is we're going to live with for the year. The things that we would tweak are not things that are actually in this document.
Gotcha.
And if, back to what I was saying, if we had to, we could technically tweak it without bringing you all back together, because we're in the pandemic crisis situation. I'm going to try not to do that, but I would certainly alert you if I were going to make certain significant changes.
I would like to ask for a motion to approve the back-to-school reentry plan.
I make a motion to approve the back-to-school entry plan for the MSD of Martinsville.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion has been made by Dave and seconded by Don. Are there any other additional questions or discussion?
If I may add to your question, Michelle, about the concern of whether or not the board would have to regroup to make a motion, take a vote for the alteration of the plan. In agreement with Dr. Arthur, that would be no. The same situation would fall under if we had any other critical incident, that he could take emergency measures without the vote of a board to safeguard our students.
Thank you, Steve. We will now take a roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Next item, pandemic position. So as a portion of this reentry plan, we've identified two things that we need to do, and we're actually going to use or tap into CARES funding. So I want to remind everyone that we received about $640,000 this year in CARES funds to get us over this hump, and this is to pay for cleaning things and additional things that we have to do this year to handle the COVID crisis. And so I anticipate there will be more funds than this. We'll see. We're being told there will be, but regardless, we're being very careful with these funds. We're trying to make sure that we hold back a significant portion of them in case something were to change and we need to adjust something at the last minute or maybe 6 months into this or whatever. We just think that's the smartest policy. But as a component of that, I am asking the board tonight to consider two new positions. One is we're calling it coordinator for student services. This person's primary duties will be to manage all things pandemic and be the point of contact for the entire district in all pandemic. So if we have an outbreak at a particular school, this would be the individual that will go to that school, work with that school nurse, with the health department, with me, with the various stakeholders that need to figure out what the next steps are. We just very much feel like we need to have one central person. We also want the public to know that there's one central person who's really managing all these pieces and is paying attention to what's going on in buses, is paying attention to what's happening with custodians and what those numbers look like. And so this individual will also be responsible for keeping track of all the records and all the things that we have to do. As you can imagine, with money, anytime you get quote unquote free money, it's not so free, because somebody's tracking on the backside all the things you're doing with those dollars and how you're handling it. So another large piece of this position is tracking attendance on a daily basis. It's tracking student data in regards to kids that are sick and who's been around whom. While the state and the county will have a large hand in contact tracing, there's no doubt about it, they don't have access to the things we do. So meaning we know kids' addresses, we know where they were. So somebody has to keep track of all of that stuff throughout the day. So this individual will be the person that will help with that. The second position I'd ask for, and we can do this as a clump if you're okay with that, is an additional instructional coach. The district already employs 2 instructional coaches. We would like to add a third. The reason for this, these 3 coaches, the 2 coaches that we have and this additional third coach, they're going to shift their focus this year to be more oriented to helping teachers get better at teaching if we have to go to at-home learning or e-learning. And so this is truly a resource for our teachers. This is not an administrator position. This is a teaching position, and it will align with our other 2 instructional coaches. I'm thankful for the 2 coaches that we have. They work their tail ends off and they're awesome, but they're spread too thin, and particularly in this time we find ourselves, we just need more hands. So I'd ask for a motion on those 2 items.
And as my papa always said, free money's never free. I would ask for a motion to accept the pandemic positions, 2 positions, coordinator, student services, and instructional coach.
I make a motion to accept the pandemic positions, coordinator, student services, and instructional coach.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Debbie and seconded by Dave. Is there any additional comments or discussion?
And these are 2-year positions,
They are.
and they'll be advertised as normal.
They are set for 2-year positions. The one exception, thank you for asking that. The one exception I'm gonna ask of the board is that we not possibly wait a whole month to approve these 2 positions because we will be a couple weeks into school before the next board meeting. So we will post, we'll do the things that we normally do. This particular position, if it takes somebody out, which it very well will, because I'd like for somebody who understands Martinsville to be in this position, there's no reason to be dishonest about that. When we move somebody into this position, it could potentially be another administrator. When that happens, we will backfill their position with somebody interim. So be loud and clear, this is a temporary thing for, when I say temporary, I'm saying during the CARES Act money, which is a 2-year funding source. So as of right now, I'm asking for a 2-year commitment. The person who is selected for this position would then go back to their position at the end of the 2 years, and the person that's in their position would go back or potentially would not work here anymore, but that's not usually how that goes. Usually there's a non-turnover.
And these will be posted tomorrow, probably,
Yes,
tonight.
I hope so. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions? We'll take a roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes,
Myself, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much for your support on that. Next item, administrator contract renewal for 2020 and the 2021 school year. Actually, I think it's the 20 to the 2022. That's a typo. It's actually a 2-year contract, as we can give principals a 2-year. Just to kind of put this in perspective, this is the sort of the final step of all the raises. I think I said that last time, but really this, I think, is the final step of all the raises based on this last year's money. So this is not getting into new money or new budget. It's not doing anything that we haven't already been planning for. But we've given everybody in the corporation a raise or have adjusted their pay except for the principals, and their contracts expire July 1st, which is common. You are always doing them after the fact, so that's not a problem. But we need to retroactively renew their contracts to July 1st of this current year, 2020. So the chunk of contracts that you have involve making 2 tweaks. One is a 1.5% raise for each of those 2 years. So they will, I'm sorry, it's a 1.5 total for the 2 years. So their base pay will go up 1.5% as soon as we put it in the system for July 1st. We additionally, it doesn't seem like much of a raise, but we additionally are moving they all have a $2,500 performance bonus built into their pay. We're moving that that $2,500 bonus into their base salaries. They're going to get the $2,500 plus the 1.5%, which puts them about where the same amount of money that teachers got, which actually for administrators proportionally is less of a raise, but we feel like it's a reasonable thing to do in the times that we find ourselves. It aligns with what you all did for me and what we've done for every other administrator in the district and teachers for that matter and uncertified staff. So this kind of puts everything in alignment, and again, it also puts us in a 2-year cycle for the principals and catches us up. At this point, I think we're caught up on all contracts, and as soon as we get these signed, we'll get everything up on the web and we'll be very transparent about it.
Jeremy, did you get a total on that? You had said you had a total amount that would be for the administrators?
The total cost of the package.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, that's fine. I would ask for a motion to approve the administrator contract renewal for 2020 to 2022.
I make a motion that we move to accept the administrator contract renewal for the years 2020 to 2022, the 2-year contract.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion made by Dave and seconded by Don. Is there any other additional questions or comments?
If I may, I just, in my head, I could do the math here real quick. We're talking about between $30,000 and $40,000 across 12 administrators.
Okay.
So in the grand scheme of, if you kind of compare that to other groups, it's not significant.
Right. Thank you for that. Roll call vote. Sorry, lost my voice. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
That was a yes, I heard it.
Yeah. Myself, yes, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. The next item is our corporation treasurer for some reason got left off of our non-cert raises last time. And so I'm asking for consideration to raise her base pay by $1,000.
Is there a motion to increase our corporation treasurer's base pay $1,000?
I move that we raise the base pay for the corporate treasurer, $1,000.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion has been made by Don and seconded by Dave. Is there any other comments or questions? We'll do the roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, next item. The non-certified handbook for the 2020-2021 school year. Actually, last month, you guys approved the raise that went into that book, and we cleaned up some language that was old and dated. We adjusted to employees to different pay scales because they've been here for a large number of years and have not had a raise for a large number of years. So we moved those two individuals to a different pay scale to give them the same equivalent that other staff have gotten. So those are the significant changes to changes that impact dollars in regards to the non-certified handbooks. So I would ask for the school year, you guys could approve that.
I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the non-certified handbook for the 2020-2021 school year, please.
I make a motion to accept the non-certified handbook for the 2021 school year.
Thank you, Debbie. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion has been made by Debbie and seconded by Dave. Is there any discussion or questions? I'll do the roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. This next one is not that awesome. It's not very fun. It has to do with our VALIC program. We agree that this is resolution to approve amendment and reinstatement of MSD of Martinsville's 403B retirement plan. I guess it's very important, but it's not very fun to talk about. We are required regularly to have an attorney review our 403B plans and all of our retirement plans to ensure that they meet federal guidelines. And so we have done that, and we have to show that we've done that. And what you're approving is that we've had an attorney look at the plan and we're reinstating, we're ensuring that it meets the guidelines that it needs to meet, but no tweaks have been made to the plan.
I ask for a motion to approve a resolution to approve amendment and restatement of MSD of Martinsville 403B retirement plan.
I make a motion that we approve the amendment and reinstatement of the MSD of Martinsville's retirement plan.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Don. Is there any discussion or questions? Roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Next item, resolution number 46, emergency allocation request. This next set of items requesting the board consider us using funds that are set aside in the budget. So this is not taking away from other things. It's actually emergency set aside money to upgrade a couple of key systems. Those systems are PA systems in 4 of our buildings that are probably older than all of us and just need to be replaced and are not in working condition across the board. So I'm asking for us to be able to replace those and get started on that now before school starts. And then additionally, a couple of other items, doorbell system for this particular building. We do house children in this building, and we need to make some security upgrades. And so that's a portion of this. Paragon, we've identified that we have repaired the roof more times than we can count over the office. And so I'm asking that we could also use a portion of this allocation to make that repair and be done with it and stop repairing it. I'm getting tired of climbing up on that building and throwing tar on that roof.
Those kids like the bucket with the water to it. I will tell you, they pass by. It's hard not to
Our kids deserve better, so we need to get that fixed. And then finally, we have a fairly significant Motorola radio upgrade. Last year, we replaced the majority of the handheld radios, emergency radios for the district. And then once that happened and we went digital, we found that there were 2 hotspots in the district in which the radios were not working very well. One is at Martinsville High School and the other is at Centerton. And so that particular portion of what I'm asking for would put antennas in those spaces, which then gives us coverage in other parts of the county for our radio system. And we think that's just a really important thing to do. I would remind everyone, if you don't remember, we had a pretty significant outage back in the fall. We want to talk about being a panicky superintendent. We have AT&T as a provider, and AT&T is our phone system, our internet, you name it, it's all AT&T. And a line got cut, and it was hours and hours, if not a day and a half, I can't recall, that we were without communications. So that they do, and we figured it out. We used Verizon cell phones of anybody in the corporation who had one, and we made it work. But I don't want us to be in those sorts of positions. And so this radio upgrade was one of the ways that we now know that we have the coverage that we need should we not be able to use regular systems. And these antennas will help us with that. Just to kind of point out, the amount I'm asking for out of emergency dollars is a portion of this because we are applying for school safety grant money, which is the equivalent of $100,000, $50,000 from the government, $50,000 from things that we're already purchasing. It's a match grant. So that reduces what we would be pulling from our own dollars. We also have some unused construction bond money in the Brooklyn project. And so I'm using that money to pay for the Brooklyn system that needs to be upgraded. Long story short, of the almost $300,000 I'm asking for, about 148 tonight.
And this does go like with Sam at the technology. This provides all across the district to be able to communicate.
It does. Every radio we own is all on the same network, if that makes sense. They're all digital and they all talk to each other. So it's a matter of switching channels and being able to connect with whichever department or person that you need to connect to. And there are a number of them in our classrooms and across our schools. It's not just us. This impacts basically everything we do.
It's a lot of money for walkie-talkies. Anyone
It's
out
really
there who may know what those are.
For the antenna. Yeah, it's expensive.
I'd like to ask for a motion for resolution 46, emergency allocation request, please.
I make a motion that we accept resolution 46, emergency allocation request.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
I second.
Oh.
We can't
Thank
hear
you,
you,
Steve. Okay,
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I'm handing it to Steve, sorry, Debbie. Motion was made by Don and seconded by Steve. Roll call vote. Debbie?
I just have a quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
These can be done before school starts, right?
We're going to try.
Okay.
One of the things we're running into with everything we're doing is supply and demand is really confusing right now.
Okay.
We're struggling to get some just really strange things that people don't think about. Like, for example, if anybody has a swimming pool, getting swimming pool test kits right now is impossible because those chemicals are being used for something else. So just an example, and checking the pool water is very important. We're looking back to our pool checker right here. But those are the kinds of things that I don't want to promise anything, but what we will do is engage basically next week with all these different contractors. The roof contractor is not an issue. We have a contract with a roof contractor that is already doing maintenance anyway, so that's a fairly easy thing to do because the project falls under the line by which we don't have to necessarily bid things out. We're fine on that one. In terms of all these other pieces, it's a matter of ordering equipment and seeing how quick it can get here.
Okay, thank you. Then I say yes after that.
My apologies. Was there any other question or discussion?
Except for the safety of our students and our staff, this is going to be a great improvement, especially in those 4 elementary schools.
It will. I know at the high school, the system at the high school is really in repair. It's been sort of patched and patched and patched. It really just needs to be replaced. What will end up happening probably is to kind of piggyback on what you said about timing and how will that happen. Because the high school project is so much bigger, they will do most of the wire pulling right now. So nobody will really notice anything's probably happening. The wire pulling will occur first and the old system will stay in place until the wiring is in place and they can then install the new system. So it'll be a little strange for a minute and won't be in working order, but the old system will still be there.
Okay, thank you.
We'll do a roll call vote. Sorry, Debbie, one more time. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
That was a yes.
Okay, sorry, didn't hear. And myself, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. We're getting close. Okay. Next item, Lancer BB. This is Lancer BB are architects on both the Student Activity Center as well as the Brooklyn STEM Center. And so this particular item is to officially accept a bid for CPM, the construction company that is working on that project out at Brooklyn.
I'd like to ask for a motion to accept Lancer BB base bid, please.
I make a motion to accept the Lancer BB LLC recommendation to accept base bid plus offer.
Thank you, Debbie. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Debbie and seconded by Dave. Is there any questions or comments? We'll do a roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. Steve was a yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Super excited to, if you happen to drive by Brooklyn, the actual excavating contractor has already started. So we're finally moving, and I didn't think that project was ever going to go. You might remember that project got stalled because of floodplain moving. So yeah, anyway, we're moving. Next item, donations to athletic program in the amount of $4,890 in memory of Ken Roden. 2,445 will go to the general athletic fund, and 2,445 will go to the girls softball program. I would ask for your approval tonight of that donation.
I'd like to ask for a donation to the MHS athletic program, please.
I make a motion to accept the donation to the MHS athletic program in the memory of Ken Road.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion's been made by Dave and seconded by Don. Is there any questions or comments? We'll do the roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Next item, Community Foundation, a donation for $50.
I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the Community Foundation donation.
I move that we accept the Community Foundation donation of $50.
Thank you, Don. Sorry, I'm giggling. Right. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Motion's been carried by Don, made by Don and seconded by Dave. Is there any questions or comments? Roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Next item, I'm going to take a breather and turn it over to Mr. Butler. DLI grant for Poston Road.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to just read a statement on behalf of Mrs. Vulcan, who's out of town this evening and couldn't be here. So, Poston Road Elementary has been awarded a $20,000 dual language immersion grant from the Indiana Department of Education. This grant will provide funds to help transition the Poston Road 4th grade students to 5th grade at Bell Intermediate this coming school year by providing funds for textbooks, supplies, and professional development for the staff at the intermediate school. The grant will also be used to provide additional textbooks and supplies to the current Spanish program at Poston Road Elementary, as well as provide the Spanish immersion teachers the opportunity to attend the La Cochecha Dual Language Immersion Conference in New Mexico this fall. Mrs. Vulcan says, we are extremely excited about the opportunities this grant will provide our current Spanish immersion program. Having the opportunity to attend the largest national dual program immersion conference will allow us to network and learn from national leaders and experts in the field, which will help us expand our skill set and bring back new ideas and ways to improve our already amazing program. Mrs. Vulcan and I met a couple of weeks ago. The conference is still, as far as we know, in place for this fall, but she is making some perhaps alternative thoughts on that if things would change depending upon COVID. So just ask that for your consideration for approval, that $20,000 grant that benefits students at Poston Road and Bell Intermediate.
I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the $20,000 grant for Poston Road and Bell Academy, please.
I make a motion to accept the DLI grant awarded to Poston Road Elementary.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion's been made by Debbie and seconded by Don. Is there any questions or comments?
Just congratulations to Jill and her staff, because I know they worked very, very hard on this, and it's quite an accolade for them, and I'm excited for it.
As he was talking, does anyone remember when the Spanish immersion started? Like what grade are those
These
kids
students,
on?
it's the original group, so the students that started in kindergarten are now getting ready to transition to fifth grade.
Oh my goodness, wow. Can't wait to see them just maybe do a whole graduation in Spanish. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Take a roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Of course, I get better at this as we get to the very end. Okay, next item, 2021 proposed Martinsville High School student handbook.
I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the 2020-2021 student handbook, please.
I make a motion that we approve the 2021 MHS student handbook for the high school.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion's been made by Dave and seconded by Don. Is there any questions or comments? Roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Next item, Bell Intermediate Academy, 5th and 6th grade textbook fees for approval.
I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the Bell Intermediate Academy grade textbook fees for approval, please.
I make a motion that we approve the Bell Intermediate Academy 5th and 6th grade textbook.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion made by Don and seconded by Dave. Is there any questions or comments? We've approved, this will be the last for approval for text fees, isn't this the
This is
last?
the
Okay, that's what I thought, okay. Roll call vote, any other questions, comments? Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes, motion carries 5-0.
And last item that I have, Martinsville High School textbook rental fees for approval.
I'd like to ask for a motion for the MHS textbook rental fees, please.
I make a motion that we accept the MHS textbook rental fees.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion has been made by Dave and seconded by Debbie. Is there any comments or questions? Roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 5-0. Superintendent comments.
Ooh, okay, thank you. Short and sweet tonight, I promise. 3 things. I just want to dispel yet again a little bit of information that's sort of floating around about building projects. So given the economy and all the things that are going on in the world, I've had some questions about how in the world are you breaking ground on 2 building projects, Brooklyn and the Activity Center. And I want to be clear that everyone understand that these projects have been in planning for a number of years. They didn't just happen overnight. The financing has been in planning for a number of years. And so the financing for the field house was actually approved a year ago when I came in, right around June or July of 19. And then I will remind everyone that earlier this year, not shortly after I got here, we then brought forth the Brooklyn project for final approval. So these pieces have been in process for a long time, and I want, it's that whole, it's not coming out of the fund you think it is conversation. And so these are building projects, and they're coming out of operation funds. These funds are not allotted for classroom or pandemic or those kinds of things. These are funds that are being generated by local taxes that have to be spent on buildings and grounds and those kinds of things. So I think it's important for people to understand that. So these projects will continue as scheduled. The only thing that might happen moving forward is that we might slow down a little bit on our capital projects requests to you all. I'm not sure about that yet. We are running budget numbers, but we might adjust moving forward, maybe slowing down a little bit on a roof or 2 or buying a bus or something to make sure that we have a little more cushion as we go into what I'm concerned might be a year of recession in public school world, and that we just have a little wiggle room. We're in a really good shape right now with buildings and grounds, roofs, we've worked really hard, you all have worked really hard to allocate those funds. And really this Peregrine project is pretty piddly in the grand scheme of roofs. But it's one of the last sort of hot spots that we have that really needs to be taken care of. And then I feel like we're in pretty good shape. Our buildings are in good shape, our HVAC systems are in good shape. Now, knock on wood, something doesn't happen, but we're in good shape. And so I just want to make sure people understand that we're not excessively spending money that would otherwise be spent for other things. These are dollars that have to go to building projects. So having shared that, a couple of really good pieces of information, I'm probably going to embarrass somebody here a little bit, but we have a teacher in the crowd everyone happens to know, who has some celebratory time for her AP Bio scores for class. I want to just point out that we have some amazingly smart children in our district. I shouldn't say children, young adults. 74% of our students who took their AP exams, AP Bio scores, got college credit for those. And just to kind of give you a comparison, the state mean was 2.9, and our district scored a 3.29. So that's significantly higher. It doesn't seem like it, but in the world of AP scores, that is significantly higher and should be celebrated. So I want to say congrats to Shannon and her colleagues at the high school for their hard work. And I know we have similar scores in all of our areas of our AP courses because folks work really hard. Those are the ones I know about tonight. So Shannon, thank you. One final look. Well, I say what's up. We haven't talked about kids much tonight, so I get my kid fixed. We're proud of our students. Final thing, graduation appreciation. And I know I'm not going to steal the thunder report, so I promise I'm not going to read any names or list individuals, but I couldn't be more proud of our staff for how they pulled together in a time of crisis. And when I say staff, I'm talking about all facets of our district to make sure that we were able to give our students what we could under the conditions. And like I said, very proud and very happy with how the community came together and did what we asked and social distance as much as possible and try to keep people safe. But you know, when you're standing up on that stage and you're looking out at almost 300 kids, first of all, it gives you the chills. And once you get over the chills, then the nerves come because you think, what if one of these kids does something? And they were amazingly well behaved. I appreciated it. Very respectful, as they always are. Every event we have, our kids were awesome and were extremely respectful and thankful as they walked across that stage. So it was nice to see the sparkle in their eyes and to give them some closure. And I'm very appreciative of, again, all of our staff who made that happen, as well as the board supporting and pushing me a little bit to make that happen. So thank you. It turned out to be a great event. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Arthur. We will now go into the board member comments. We will start with Debbie.
I know this is a surprise, but this is our last board meeting before school starts. And I'm gonna take this off because I can't. And that just seems so amazing that it's time for school to start. Thank you to everyone, all of the people we can't name personally, but thanks for everything you've done. You know, teachers, how different your year ended and everything you had to do, administrators, directors, superintendents, what a first year. But everything is so appreciated. I don't know if we can say it enough, but we do appreciate and we love all of you and appreciate you. And then on the other side, good luck this year too. But thank you for everything, parents, everybody. I couldn't stay up here forever and say thank you, but it means the world to the kids, and that's the important part. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Dave?
Well, kind of top that, Debbie. I always like to say it's great to be an artesian. Sure. So, as we talk about people, and Kurt Bodell, our food service director, well, what a job him and his staff have done all school year from when the March started and even before, but no doubt after March hit, and they carried over into the summer. I know they had a food distribution today even, and as Dr. Arthur talked about the meals for the upcoming school year, they're going to be served in the classroom. So what the job doesn't get any easier for them. So Kurt Bodell and his food service staff, boy, what a great job. And no doubt they're going to continue to keep that up for our students.
I think we're at 66,000 meals as of today for the summer. Just as a number.
Thank you, Dave. Don?
I would just like to express best wishes and good luck to all of our extracurricular activities. Some of them have started already here a couple weeks ago. We don't know what it's going to look like going forward. We know it's going to be different than what it has been in the past, but hopefully we can keep these programs going without any interruptions.
Thank you, Don. Steve?
I feel like I'm almost being redundant by what I'm going to say, but it truly takes a village to make a successful school system. And there are so many, along with what Debbie said, there are so many people to thank. Our community, our administration, just everyone, I mean, pulling together. But I'd particularly like to draw attention to the graduation ceremony, and I'd like to thank two particular groups. I want to thank our transportation system for the transporting individuals to and from the various parking lots, and getting them there safely and offering those accommodations. And I'd also like to thank our public safety personnel, our police, our fire, and our EMS for covering the event. And I also, talking about safety, I want to extend my appreciation to our superintendent and his team, along with the principals, the entire school faculty, for taking every step, also the public health department for taking every step to make sure that we get our students off in a safe manner to start the school year. So thank you all.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. I have a couple things. First, if you can say that anything great came out of the COVID, it would be how our meetings have gone to YouTube, which I love because now everyone can watch live, or if you love it so much, you can watch it every day. It's there on YouTube and you can watch it every day. So due to that, and we're going to, I believe, and Dr. Arthur can correct me, I'm going to continue that because that is a great way for those who can't be here to see what's going on and be able to watch it. So due to that going to continue, the school board preview that I used to do on Wednesdays will no longer be going on because that was for people who couldn't come and wanted to hear what was going on. But now that we're offering it on YouTube, everyone will be able to view it live wherever you are at practices or wherever you may be. So I just wanted to address that. So I am glad for that. I'm glad we're on YouTube so everyone can watch it. Dr. Arthur also some things on graduation day. It was tremendous. I speak as a parent of graduates as well, so I was truly invested in this day. I know that afterwards, when the pictures were being taken and the seniors were gathering, not necessarily social distancing, but you saw Caribbean kids together, you saw Centerton taking that last picture. They were smiling, they were happy, they got closure, and thank you so much for giving that to them. I cannot tell you how important it was for them to gather one last time as a class to say goodbye to the high school and to their classmates. So Dr. Arthur, who yeah, one of those pains was probably me, to make sure that we could get a graduation for them. Also, two other people who worked so hard was Ryan Wagner and Audrey Jackson. Thank you to those two. It was said that Ryan Wagner was at the school at 9 a.m. Sunday morning, going over every detail, every plan, second guessing, going through everything. So that was so appreciated. To the fact that they just handed out water. It was great to be able to hand out water. Yes, those bleachers kind of get hot, and they handed out water. The public service announcements were great. Parents were so pleased. It was just, I could hear it all around me and afterwards. It was a great, so thank you to everyone. And I do not want to not include Mr. and Mrs. Lund. Thank you so much. I had a parent behind me make a comment that said, oh my goodness, that's just so cute. They truly care about the students. So that is a great compliment to you both, and you did, and thank you. I know, Mr. Lund, you're the senior sponsor, so they love seeing you there and knowing that you were part of their last day here. So thank you to the both of you for all that you've done and for the admin team. Last but certainly not least, the board does not know that I'm going to announce this very quickly, but I'm super proud of this board as we were recently named a commendable board. And for anyone who does not know what that means, you earn points by attending training sessions. And these training sessions are not 100 points apiece. They're 15, they're 20, they're 25. So you accumulate points by attending training sessions and workshops. And the majority of the school board members need to be at a certain number to be a commendable board. So it has to be the majority. And as individuals, you earn points and you become different levels as a school board member. So I want to commend everyone because we are a commendable board. I believe Cody did a newspaper article on that. If you did not see that in the reporter. But I just want to say thank you to the board for all the hard work and the time that they spent going to these trainings and workshops. It's just great to be cohesive and know that we do this so that we can be better educated to make the decisions for our #1 asset, and that is our students. So thank you to the board. That's a great accomplishment. With no further comments, our next school board meeting will be August 20th at 6:30 p.m. Fingers crossed here in person at the CEC. Can I ask for a motion to adjourn, please?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Don. Motion's been made by Dave and seconded by Don. Roll call vote. Debbie?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Steve?
Michelle, real quick, if I may add, in recognition of your commendable board announcement there, that was by the Indiana School Board Association, correct?
Yes, thank you.
And I also vote to adjourn the meeting.
And myself as well. Motion carries. Thank you all for attending, and you too, Lynn.